Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Kopp, and over the past few weeks we have been talking with Temple administrators, student athletes, and coaches about Temple Athletics' response to COVID-19. And today we check in with Senior Associate Athletic Director for Compliance and Student Athlete Affairs, Kristy Bannon Sromovsky. Kristy, thanks for taking some time to talk.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
So, I think if you had to add up the minutes spent on Zoom from everyone in the Temple Athletic Department over the last 6 weeks, you might be the record holder, or at least close. So, I mean, what has the last month and a half been like for you?
So I think we move from, for us, the past month and a half has moved from where are our student athletes? Are they home? Are they on campus? Do we need to get them home? Making sure that they're adjusting to their new normal, working in conjunction with Justin and his staff. And then it shifts to, okay, where is the legislation going in terms of, walking through spring sport student athletes returning to campus for an additional year due to the canceled season, to what is this new world of virtual recruiting look like, as all of our programs are still in a recruiting dead period. So you work through like the several kind of phases of this as it goes through, first making sure everyone is healthy and safe and where they need to be. And then, okay, what does this look like for us moving forward? What does it look like for the summer? What does it look like for some of our coaches who may still be completing 2020 classes and 2021 classes when they can't go out on the road and recruit? So it's been way more Zooms. Our monthly compliance conference calls have gone from monthly to weekly. My staff meetings have gone from weekly and seeing each other every day to twice a week, needing to check in and see what everything is, what everyone's doing and what's going on, and increased reach out with the NCAA and getting them on Zoom calls to talk through potential flexibility in legislation and where they can be flexible and where we can't be. So I think when we all return to work, I don't know that I ever want to be on a video conference call again.
So obviously, as you said, student athlete welfare, making sure everyone's safe and taken care of is first and foremost, and that's been probably the single biggest recurring topic that has come up in these interviews. So I want to dig in more on the compliance and legislation side of things, because those of us that work in this industry, we're following the latest breaking news every day, and it does seem like it changes every day. But for some people that may not be following this as closely as we are, let's take a couple of those big things and dive in on them. And let's start with eligibility for spring sport athletes. The NCAA granting everyone that plays a spring sport an extra year of eligibility. What does that mean in a practical and a functional sense for Temple and for our student athletes?
So I think in a practical and functional sense, the 3C of the NCAA recommended the relief right after the NCAA announced the cancellation of the seasons, which was then later supported by the membership and by council. And so for us, that means looking at every student athlete who we expected to get their full season this year and then graduate and go out into the world, to now give them the opportunity to return. And looking at it, if you put yourself in the shoes of a student athlete or any student in March of their senior year, kind of what they're looking at, it's quite a shift for some of our folks. So for us at Temple, it was immediate reach out to our coaches and to our students of, this opportunity has presented itself for you. What questions do you have? Do you want to come back? For many, that means, grad school, a certificate program, working through that admissions process. And then also, of course, from the financial aid piece and what that looks like, and being able to honor student athletes to return for their senior year if they were on scholarship, at the level of which they had this year. So I think for us, it's been, we're incredibly lucky that we have some of our student athletes returning. And now it's just making sure they can get set up in summer classes that they may need, or acceptance into grad school and moving forward.
Well, and I think it's important to note on that front, too, that the NCAA, what that legislation entails is the ability to come back, right? It's then up to the school to figure out a way to make that work. And we've seen that schools are not necessarily following the model that we are. Some schools have said, sorry, we can't accommodate that. Some schools have said we can, but maybe not at the current scholarship level that you have. So I think it's a credit to Temple for putting the student athlete first and figuring out, I know that's the challenge on your end for some of our other folks, but figuring out the kind of back end of that later, but making sure that our student athletes are all going to have that option and be taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly awesome. We're certainly excited to see those who have chosen to come back next year, be out on the field for their senior season. We're also incredibly proud of the students who have said, you know what, it's unfortunate that my season ended, but I have a job that, you know, I'm getting ready to start. And so returning is not the right move for me in this case. And I give credit to all of our student athletes. I think both decisions were probably incredibly difficult, but it really just shows kind of how mature our senior class really is in being able to make those decisions.
So let's shift now to recruiting, and you brought up the words dead period. Again, just compliance 101 here. What does that mean, and what is the current state of recruiting right now for our coaches?
So the current state of recruiting is that all of our sports are currently in what the NCAA terms as a dead period, which is a little bit morbid now when you think about it. But it basically means that our coaches cannot have any in-person, on or off campus contact with any prospective student athletes or their families. So think about home visits, think about evaluations of practice, or you know, unofficial visits or official visits, bringing our prospects to campus. So our coaches can't have any in-person contact with recruits. What does remain permissible per each sport's different recruiting rules, because they're all different, is electronic correspondence and telephone calls, video calls, again, per each sports legislation. So our coaches are entering this world of, while obviously texting and direct messaging and emails are not new, I think in this modern age, maybe video conferencing was not used as much as it certainly is being used now.
I'll get you out of here on this. Just what are the other things that you're keeping an eye on from a compliance and a student-athlete perspective, just on legislation or things that may be coming down the pike that are going to have to be monitored as we return to some sense of normalcy?
Yeah, I think this happened at a really interesting time. A lot of the COVID rule changes and where we're at right now are also coinciding with big changes coming for student athletes in terms of name, image, and likeness, and also, you know, a lot of work coming out of the transfer working group and whether transfers in some of our sports will be immediately eligible or not. So for us, this is there's a lot going on and a lot to keep track of. So for us, primarily, any return to play is obviously making sure we're following the NCAA rules for when physical activity can begin to occur again, but making sure that return to play protocols are obviously followed. I know our athletic director and Jess, our SWA, is working, you know, hand in hand with our team doctors and our strength and conditioning staff and our sports medicine staff to make sure that we're following all those parameters. But health and safety obviously does come too with the NCAA regulations of when everyone can start back up. So what preseason will look like, when it will begin, when first contests will start. So we'll track on all of that. And then it's also the normal education of our students during beginning of the year meetings and what those changes will bring in terms of what we'll need to educate on. My office also works with housing and dining. So it's making sure that when our students do come back, that they have a place to come back to and where they're staying in the summer and what that looks like. So we're working with a lot of different offices on campus to make sure that when we can get our students back, which is hopefully soon, that we're getting them back in a safe way and also in an NCAA compliant way.
Well, I don't know how you keep your head wrapped around all this during normal circumstances. I cannot imagine then having to kind of build the plane as it's flying and keep track of all this during this time. So kudos to you.
Well, I appreciate it. If you ever want to, you know, come work in the compliance office, well,
I've never been more grateful to just be sitting in front of a camera and not having to worry about any of that. But thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I feel smarter. So that is Kristy, Bannon, Sromovsky joining us. And we remind you that throughout the remainder of the spring and summer, we will be talking with Temple coaches, student athletes, and administrators about how we are preparing for a return to normalcy, hopefully soon. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you up the road.